hope you enjoyed the video I chose for this talk. Hello, everyone. I'm Remus. I'm a front-end developer at Seek. I work on the front-end practices team. We work on open source software and internal tooling. You might have heard of Braid, Playroom, Skew. I'm also an open source contributor to some of these like Vanilla Extract, Rollup, Vite, Webpack, and at Seek we've been working on our next iteration of front-end tooling, and this talk is about the journey, a bit about the journey. So we'll talk about why should we care about ES modules, what the differences are between ES modules and CommonJS modules, what the state of ES modules is in browsers, bundlers, Node.js, TypeScript, and then what it takes to actually support ES modules. So what are ES modules? Well, in a nutshell, you have a way to import and export stuff from two modules. So you have the export keyword, which marks something as exportable, and then you have the import keyword. These can only be at the top level. In CommonJS, this would be equivalent to module.exports or exports and require. Although there are subtle differences between there, we'll see what those are. So the differences between ES module, very briefly, there are many, but I need to fit them on one slide. ES modules can be synchronous or asynchronous. We'll see what that means in a second. ES modules can be used in the browser. ES modules can import CommonJS modules or ES modules. They can import and export can only be used at top level. There are no globals like their name and file name, although you can derive them from import.meta.url. There's no global require, but you can create a require with the create require function. And there are import specifiers, which are something new, like compared to CommonJS. They must have file extensions. We'll see what import specifiers are in a moment. In CommonJS, things are synchronous, which makes them slow because you need to load everything. So you need to parse the whole thing. You can have require anywhere. You can have conditional requires, and that's why they're slow, because you need to execute the whole code to find all the requires, which makes it difficult, if not impossible, to statically analyze. They can't be used in a browser because you don't have require and module.export in the browser. But if you use a bundler, sorry, what happened? If you use a bundler, you can. Oh, we still have something there. All right, cool. You can't require ES modules, but you can use import. The result of that is a promise, so you have to await it. So it's asynchronous when you load an ES module. And with require, you can omit the extension. So what do we mean when we say that ES modules are asynchronous? Well, in loading an ES module happens in three steps. There's the construction step, which means finding, downloading, and parsing all files into module records, those little boxes there. Then there's the instantiation step, which is finding space in memory to place all the exported values. We don't fill them with values yet, just reserve the memory there. And then you make the imports and exports point to those boxes in memory. This is also called linking. And then we have the evaluation, which is actually running the code and putting all those values in there. This is taken from a Mozilla blog from a few years ago. So Lynn Clark is the author. She says, people talk about ES modules being asynchronous. These three steps can be done separately. For example, in the browser, you can do them separately. which makes them asynchronous. And the bit about import specifiers. So the specifier is the thing which you import from. So when you have import foo from blank, the blank is the import specifier. So you can have relative import specifiers, starts with a dot slash or dot dot slash. You can have absolute, like slash something. You can have URLs, like HTTP, HTTPS file. And then you have bare import specifiers, which are the special ones, and that's where the tricky part comes in. So bare specifiers are basically everything else, which are just those that don't start with dot slash, dot dot slash, slash, or a protocol. So stuff like React, or if you have a scope like Babel / core. And then you have bare specifier and then subpath, which just means you have slash something there. So with that, like, what's the big deal? Why do we care about ES modules? Why ES modules, right? Well, because the import and export are at the top level, that makes them statically analyzable, which allows for faster traversal of the module graph. And because we can also see which parts are used, we can throw away some code. It's called tree shaking, which makes the code faster. Less code to parse, faster to execute, right? They can be executed synchronously or asynchronously, which means that we can use them in the browser, and which means we might need a bundler. We might not need a bundler, which is exciting, right? Who doesn't want to not use a bundler? So let's see what the situation is in browsers. So how do you use modules in browsers? Well, you have two ways. You can have an external script like import type module, and then you pass a path. Or you can have import type module and you write your code there. You have import dot something from a path. And this specifier needs to be relative or absolute or HTTP something. You can't use bare import specifiers. You can't do import create root from React DOM because the browser doesn't know what React DOM is. It doesn't have access to the file system. You have to tell it what that means. So you'll get an error if you do that. So you have two options. You can rewrite your import specifiers. You can replace those bare specifiers with absolute or relative paths, which is what Vite does. Vite is a bundler that's new on the block, and it basically rewrites all your import specifiers to actual paths. And this is used in local development because you have your code locally. You have your node modules, which is gigabytes big. You can't really upload that to a server. You can, but it costs a lot of money. So it does that in local development. Or you can use import maps. That guy's going to tell you about import maps. But essentially, you tell the browser what to look for. So when you say import shuffle from Lodash, you tell it this is where Lodash is, or React. This is the path to it, and it's pretty cool. It's that easy, and it's supported in Dino as well. As of very recently, Safari 16.4 has support for import maps, so it's quite well supported if you don't really care about IE11 and all that. Watch this space. All right, so in the browser, pretty cool, pretty easy, if asterisk. Let's see what the situation is in Node.js. Situation in Node.js is very complicated, very tricky. How many of you know this guy? Hand up. Well, he has a lot of packages. You can see that's 1100 and something, probably 1200 by now. This screenshot is old. He's quite prolific. He's a great guy. I've never met him, but I'm sure he's a great guy. He's sort of that little piece over there, at the bottom, because he has so many packages. A lot of other packages depend on his packages. So whenever he does something, it kind of reverberates and throughout the whole community. So he was excited about ESM, and it's like, I want to use it. This is 2021, right? January 2021. What's the situation with ESM? I want to use them. He has so many packages. So there was a conversation on Twitter, and he's like, yeah, you should definitely move to ESM. And he's like, I'm going to do it. That sounds great. So he wrote this. He has like a GitHub discussion section. He said, look, this is what I want to do. This is what's going to happen. And he wrote. He made the decision. He explained what's going to happen. He wrote a Medium post, which let me open it for you. Which he deleted. Yes, I wonder why. No, I mean, you can still find it because we have the web archive. Thank God. It's still on the internet, right? Anyway, so he writes about the situation, and basically, there's two ways, he said. There's two ways you can go about migrating to ESM. You can go full ESM, just switch type module and easy, right? Or you can have a dual ESM SydJS strategy where there are all kinds of pitfalls. They're all in that Medium post. So he said, I'm going to do one. Option one, rip off the Band-Aid and push the ecosystem forward. So I've handpicked some reactions from the community for your enjoyment. This is, so remember, January 2021. This is mid last year. This is sort of when I started paying attention to what's going on, because we were working on stuff at Seek, and I started collecting tweets. So Matteo Collina is on the technical steering committee for Node.js. He's like, don't go ESM only. Don't go full ESM. It's not a good idea. Pete Hunt, you might know from React. He's one of the original, the OGs of the React team. He was quite annoyed by this, and he started forking some of Cinder's packages under this scope. Actually works, which I thought it was hilarious. Then a few other tweets from, this is the maintainer of Parcel, React Aria, and a bunch of other projects. Quite a capable developer, and he's struggling with ESM support, right? December 2022. Months later, he's like, I cracked it. It was pretty challenging, but we did it. And of course, when you have to support a broad range of tools and bundlers, then it gets complicated. So hey, he did it. Another one, this is just some random, like, this is what's needed to publish a package into today's like, ecosystem, right? If you have TypeScript, there's even more stuff. This is the maintainer of Redux. Again, very capable developers from a few days ago, a few weeks ago. Things I have to keep in mind, there's all these things you have to think about. TypeScript, Webpack 4. It's a miracle anything about the ecosystem works at all, right? This is getting utterly ridiculous. I did this talk at Melp.js a couple of weeks ago. I have a screenshot from Mark Laglish. Also, he's like, kind of makes me wish we'd stuck with SydJS. I mean, I don't blame him. Because let's see what it takes to support ES modules. This is what it takes to support ES modules. Well, it's not. This is just the beginning. We haven't reached TypeScript level yet, but this is just JavaScript, right? So you have. This is using a dual CommonJS ESM strategy because as we've seen, it's not a great idea to go full ESM. So if you want to have consumers that are on CommonJS and ESM consuming your package, then this is what you need to do. So you have You have your main, which is it's kind of obsolete at this point. But if your consumers are or tools that you if you don't have control over the environment that your package is going to be in, you have to have a main entry. These days, exports takes care of that, but if depending on what you need to support, you need a main entry point. Then you have module, which is this thing that Webpack invented before ESM was standardized, or at the same time. Module is sort of the equivalent of main. Then you have, if you have TypeScript, then you have to declare your types. Then you have exports. So with exports, you have each entry. You need to specify conditions. If you don't care about conditions, then you have only one. But if you want to support ESM and SydJS, then you have at least import and require conditions. TypeScript again has its own. There are tools which read your package JSON, so you have to expose your package JSON. Then you have, if you have subpaths, like you have demo/other, then you need to have one for each, with multiplied by 3. And then we're going even deeper, where you need for tools that don't understand exports, you need to give them a fake export. Like it's called if you look it up, it's called like a fallback package JSON. Basically, you create a folder there with the name of the entry. You put a package JSON, and that works backwards compatible. You basically redirect the actual file in there. You're recreating the behavior of exports, but on the file system. Excuse me. So let's say, related to this, we're kind of jumping ahead a bit, but not really. Let's say you have this sort of code that you write in TypeScript. You have import star as React from React, and then something from React DOM/server. Let's not care about the JSX, but let's say if you were to compile this to JSX, what should the code look like? Well, you would think, just ignoring the JSX part, you would think you have the JSX runtime. Excuse me. Have JSX runtime from React/JSX runtime, and then you have something from React DOM server, and you think that's it, right? Wrong. It's not it, because React 17 does not have exports. Remember, we are in ESM mode. Doesn't have exports. React 18 does have exports. The code works in React 18, but it doesn't React 17, because React 17 does not have exports. So we have to have an extension. When you have an import, it needs to have an extension. Just how it is in ESM. So if you want to support React 17 or 18, if you're building a design system like we did, and we actually hit this problem, then you have to do something about it. So let's do something about it. Let's use bundler. So let's see what the situation is in the bundler. Well, it's great, because that's how it all started. It was initially Webpack supported ESM before ESM was, even barely standardized. Before ESM, there was full ESM, full modules. Is basically SydJS with this underscore ES module true thing, and that's how Babel compiled to tell Webpack this is actually ESM, and then we have the module key. So it's widely supported in those 4, which is ES build, rollup, Vite, and Webpack. And very recently, as of a few days ago, Parcel supports it as well. So things are happening. It's just takes a bit of time. If you want to see more, this guy from the TypeScript team, he was doing some research for TypeScript 5. He kind of did the bit of research to see what, you see there's yeses, nos, and it's a bit of a mess. Even more thorough, the creator of Webpack created this test suite where he tests Node, Babel, Webpack rollup, ES build, and it's quite thorough. Mostly green, right? Mostly. Pretty good. So yeah, we have these automated tests to make sure that we're all taken care of. So it's pretty good. I did want to point out, like, single out Vite because it's the new kid on the block, and we're starting to build our tooling around it. We at Seek we used Webpack. We had a pretty strong knowledge on Webpack, but Vite is the new kid on the block. Is getting it has better support for ESM. It's more modern. It uses rollup and is built under the hood, and it's as I said earlier, ESM is a first-class citizen. So CommonJS is converted to ESM, which is that simplifies things a lot. And ThoughtWorks seems to like it as well, so they've upgraded it to trial. Yeah. All right. So ESM in browser is pretty good. Node.js, complicated. Bundlers, pretty good. Let's see what TypeScript is all about. So there are a couple of elements to using ESM and TypeScript. You have to have type module in your package JSON. That means that tells TypeScript to switch to ESM mode, but it also means that every .js files are treated as ESM. If you want to switch between ESM and CommonJS, you can do so by having the extension. This is just a shortcut. You have type module, and then .js files are automatically type ES modules. You have exports and imports in package JSON. Then we will have a look at import specifiers, what the situation there is, and then because SydJS and MJS was not bad enough, we've got new extensions like .mts, .cts, .d.mts, and .d.cts for declaration files. And there are a few tsconfig options that are notable. So if you want to go ESM, this is what you need to care about. This is what you care about. There are two options in minimally. This is what you should care about. Compiler options, module, node 16 or node next, and module resolution, node next or node 16 or bundler. So you just do type module in your package JSON, tsconfig, and you are good to go, right? No. Because, again, if you want to have a dual SydJS ESM strategy, then you have to do dual SydJS ESM strategy for Node as well as for TypeScript. So if you don't know what your consumer is going to be using, then you have to have, you have your branch on import and require, then you have another branch, the subconditions, which is you have to tell TypeScript, these are the types for ESM, these are the types for CommonJS. That's basically what the so yeah, you have a type module there, and then you have your split conditions, and you have the .mts and .cts analogous extensions there, and then the same for every extra subpath that you want to expose. And again, depending on what you're looking to support, TypeScript 4.7 supports ESM. TypeScript 5 improves on that. Before that, you need to do the fallback package JSON thing. And again, these new extensions were introduced in TypeScript 4.7, so you need to have. You can't use them for TypeScript below 4.7. So you have to have .cts, .mts, and .ts. So it's a bit of a headache. So import specifiers. Quick quiz. Foo.ts exists. Can you tell me which of these are valid in TypeScript?
All of them. 3.
This guy knows what he's talking about. Almost all of them. The first one, the first 3 are easy, obvious. The last one can also be true when you have those files. So you can import from foo.mjs when you have a foo.mts file, and the same for SydJS and CTS. And we'll see why. So simplest thing you can do if you want to be on ESM with TypeScript, you have your type module there in package.json. You have module node 16, and then you have your foo.ts on the file system, and you import from foo.js, right? Because that makes sense, right? foo.ts exists. You import from foo.js. This was introduced in TypeScript 4.7. The reason this is like this is TypeScript team said, we don't want to touch your code. We don't want to modify your code. We're going to compile your code to JavaScript. You write TypeScript, we'll compile it to JavaScript, but we don't want to touch your import specifier. So you should write code that will be valid. So after you compile foo.ts to foo.js, that file will exist. So you write code as if that file will exist, right? That's how they explained it. Well, that's the situation. If you're on TypeScript 4.7 or you have these options, this is the kind of code you need to write. It doesn't make sense to me, but this is what it is. If you want to write import from foo.ts, there is an option in TypeScript 5. Allow importing TS extensions, so you can write import from foo.ts. And that's another option. You just need to add that option to your TS config, and that's fine. This won't work once you compile it. You have to do something with the output, use a bundler or something. But if you want to have extensions, that's the option for you. If you don't want to have extensions, you use module resolution bundler, again, a TypeScript 5 option. This is probably what kind of code you have been writing before TypeScript 5 or TypeScript 4.7 or before that. This is probably the code that you were writing. You use a bundler. It takes care of all of that for you. You can still do that now if you want to, and that's what module resolution bundler is for. I'm going to use a bundler, so don't worry about that. This is what you're telling TypeScript. So Microsoft listened to the community because that .js and .mjs thing didn't really make sense to a lot of people in the community. So thank you, Microsoft, for listening. So what else? So we go back to that business with the d.mts and d.cts. So we have the types and you have those duplicate declaration files for backwards compatibility. So you see, as I said, there you have d.cts, d.mts, dts. That's a bit of a problem. But if you have control over the environment, you can use this option resolve package.json exports, which you don't need the fallback package.json anymore. So I think this is also introduced in TypeScript 5. You can get rid of all of that, garbage, and just turn on this option, and it reads from your exports, simplifies a lot of things, which is great. So I guess the TLDR is upgrade TypeScript. It's great. So we've been through all those journeys, browsers, Node.js. Are we there yet? There are still some open issues. So these, I marked them when they were open. They're still open. So Jest, for example, you can't use ES modules with Jest because there are some things in Node that break it, or they just don't support. It's a lot of it to do with mocking. If you want to switch to ES modules, you can't do that in Jest, so it's a bit of a bummer. And Istanbul is one of for code coverage as well, doesn't support ESM. So that's 2020. 2021, our guy said, I'm gonna go full ESM, and there's still issues popping up 2-3 years later, right? This was from a few weeks ago. Things still break, but things are also fixed. So it's not all just doom and gloom. There's still things. We're taking steps. We're getting closer and closer to that mythical future that Cinder imagined 2.5 years ago. 2.9 version 2.9 of Parcel was released just a few days ago, which is good. But so we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close, and there's more and more progress being done. More and more tools are moving to ESM. I had a slide. There's something like 10% of popular packages are ESM now, so that's 1 in 10, and it's growing. It's just slowly. So we're getting close. Tooling is getting better. More and more people are writing code that it's valid and works in ESM. So we're getting there. It's just not there yet. Hope you didn't feel like the beginning with the spinning Escher painting. If you have some thoughts, please talk to me, and we'll exchange battle stories. Thank you.
Don't go yet. Oh. Look, it's going to leap up like a startled gazelle. Okay, not quite that startled. Does anyone have a question? You've all got to have at least one question. Come on. Everyone now understands completely the state of play for ESM, and we're all good to go.
What would the MTS and the CTS extensions, what are those files?
So in Node, you have MJS and CJS, which tells Node evaluate this code as if it was CommonJS for CJS, and ESM if it was .mjs. Same for TypeScript. If you want to switch per file, you can have the .mts extension. If you name your file .mts, and the same for CTS.
TypeScript in an ESM module.
Yeah.
And then TypeScript in a CJS module.
Yeah.
Which is a stupid way around TypeScript.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you might do it.
No.
Can we please put our hands together?